What is up, guys? I do hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we're back with some more /Entitled Parents. If you're new here, please consider hitting that like, that subscribe and maybe that notification bell too, as it really helps this channel out. A huge thank you to the supporters of our channel. It really does mean the world to us. And with that being said, let's get straight into today's stories. Much love, guys. Our first story comes from Hectate Nocturne, entitled Mother Lets Her Kid Steal My Blind Cane. So a bit of backstory. I'm a 28-year-old woman who just recently went fully blind. When I was a teenager, I volunteered with my local youth group to help rebuild Mississippi after Hurricane Katrina. And while down there, I picked up a fungal parasite called histoplasmosis that over a decade migrated to my eyes and slowly caused blindness. I've been totally blind for about a year now, so I'm pretty new to it, but I digress. When I first went blind, I barely left the house and was afraid to go in public. I felt like everyone was staring at me, and in all honesty, I barely knew what I was doing. The transition had been difficult and I didn't have any support group to teach me. One day, my husband asks if I could take an Uber down to the bank and deposit a rent check, and I reluctantly agree. While out, he messages again and reminds me that we're out of a few crucial groceries. There was a Walmart grocery literally across the street from the bank. So I figured everything in life is an experience and I'll have to learn how to shop alone eventually, so why not? Everything was fine at first and I was only grabbing a few things, so I didn't need a cart. I was using my cane and what little echolocation skills I had at the time to get around, but we're still bumping into things as we blind tend to do sometimes. My cane suddenly hit something a bit softer and I figure maybe I'll whack someone's leg and apologise. Cue entitled kid EK and entitled mother EM. I said, "Shoot, I'm sorry." She said, "Hey, you hit my son." I said, "I'm so sorry, Mum, I didn't see him there." Ian begins yelling, "How could you not see him? He's clearly right there." Now I'm fully blind, but I don't wear sunglasses, mostly because I can't afford a good UV blocking pair, but also I'm not ever looking for pity or to play the part of a generic blind person. I just want to be treated like a normal person, but I do understand her confusion, as blindness is a spectrum, so I tried to calmly explain. I said, "Mum, I'm blind, I can't see anything, let alone your son. That's why I have to use a cane, so I can get around without," and she cuts me off. "If you're blind, why aren't you wearing big sunglasses?" Now, as a blind person, I do get a lot of stupid questions, but I can understand a lot of them are people who just don't know better, so I try to happily answer as many as I can. I say those are really expensive, around $200 for a good pair, and I really don't need any inside. She says, "You're not blind, you're faking it." Here is where my blood starts to boil. I can't think of any reason someone would want to pretend to be blind. It's an actual hell, and nothing pisses me off more when someone calls me a liar and when I'm not. Just as I'm about to respond, I feel a tug. Before I blink, I realise this little demon spawn has snatched my $100 cane from my hands. For those of you who don't understand, that's like if you're shopping and suddenly power goes out and you can't see a single light. Without my cane, I can barely move at all without crashing into anything. My voice gets a little shaky as I begin to panic. I say, "Please give that back. I really do need it." She says, "No you don't, you liar. My son deserves to play with this more than you." I hear her shuffle away and my expensive cane cracking into metal displays and such as they leave. I start crying and wave my arms in front of me to grab onto something, anything, and end up crashing and falling into a centered display, making a loud scene. Without fail, I somewhat curl into a ball and cry. I'm alone in public, in the dark, and have no idea what to do. Suddenly I feel a hand on my shoulder and a man's voice. We call him AG for awesome guy, and asks if I'm okay and to stay right there. I do, but begin to at least sit up and listen. This man must have been tall and built like a tank because his footsteps sounded like a giant and I felt a suction of wind when he took off. Maybe about 30 or feet away, I hear this loud bellowing like an angry lion and a loud crash. Then before I know it, the man is back and helping me to my feet. He takes my hand and puts my cane into my palm and helps me pick up the items I dropped when I fell into the display. Me wiping tears from my cheeks. Thank you so much. I didn't know how to handle that. He said, "Don't worry about it. Some people are just monsters." This guy restored my faith in humanity and even helped me finish shopping and helped me out of the store. As we're leaving, I can hear the familiar screeching of EM, something about AG grabbing the cane and pulling hard, flinging her little devil child into a shopping cart. I don't know if she was exaggerating or not, but it would explain the crash I heard. It's easy to feel alone in a world without sight, but even the sheer terror of being stripped of my cane. At least I know there are people out there willing to stand up for me when I need it. There was a lot of comments on this post as well saying, how the hell are you typing then? So I will clear this one up for you. She's using the screen reader and she could obviously type before this all happened. So yeah, there you go. But what a crazy person does that to a blind person. She's gained faith in humanity and I lose it reading these stories, you know. It's just crazy, man. And we got another crazy one. This story is from It Is I and I Love Me. Entitled Mother Yells at Me for Infecting Her Family with Corona Music. Let me introduce you to a new Karen. The Indian Karen. A little longer hair tied into a ponytail and rolled into a bun that serves the function of hiding all 7 deadly sins. A voice shrill enough to make all the street cows turn their head to look at their mistress. A gold necklace to announce her dreaded arrival. One that I encountered. I don't know if anyone has read this article. Basically, it tells how some scientists converted Coronis' famous spike protein into music. I have no idea if it's legit. I thought it's true. It's cool if someone was able to do that, and I thought I should share it, so I did. To Karen's son. Good person, good friend. He's happy that smart people are left in the world. The next morning my mum calls me from the other room, and I pick up. This was the conversation, in Punjabi. This is a rough translation. I say, hi mutt. Karen out of nowhere says, you cocksucker, sister fucker, son of a bitch, how dare you infect my family? At this point I just woke up, and still in a weird half sleep phase, wondering to which sister I'd never had she was talking about. My mum said, shut up Karen, don't you dare speak to my son like that. Karen said, I'll speak, and mum cuts her off, shut up or I'm hanging up. I said, what's going on, who are you? Mum says my name, I have Mrs. Karen on conference, did you give her son coronavirus? I said, what, no? Karen then says, don't you lie, I've seen the music you send my son, it's coronavirus. It took me a full minute to realise what she was talking about, and then it hit me. I said, have you even read the article? She said, don't you talk back to your elders. Mum said, you're acting pretty elderly now. Those two argued for 15 plus minutes. They started yelling at each other about things like, I'm a bad influence. Karen doesn't know how to talk to anyone, stuff like that. I said it's a translation of what scientists at MIT. I put this phone on speaker, opened the article and started reading all the technical terms which a 5th dropout ass would not understand. Karen said, you're not making any sense. You're lying. Then she says to Mum, you taught him to lie. What kind of mother are you? She finally breaks me. I said, apparently better than you. Did friends show this to you? Or did you open his phone without him knowing? Again. Karen said, that's none of your business. I cut the call and immediately call my friend. I tell him everything and he's mad. This was the 6th time in a month she's gone for his phone. Her excuse being, I don't want any local harlot to corrupt his son. It is my duty to make his son marry a proper Sikh girl without any distraction. I saw a comment below this one that did make me chuckle. Someone said, what kind of music is it? And then the guy replied, it's like human music, but more contagious. Crazy Indian Karens. Our next story is from The Peasant King M. Now, a pre-warning on this one, I think this story is going to be a little bit darker than the usual entitled parents craziness, as you can tell from the title. So if you're sensitive to these types of subjects, you might want to skip this story. I'll put a time code in the description below. How an entitled mother lost all of her family and died alone. The entitled mother in this story is my aunt's father's sister, mother-in-law, my cousin's grandmother. Ever since my aunt married her husband, an awesome guy, his mother had been very critical of her. She was a strong woman. She had survived on her own in 1940s rural Mexico before marrying a doctor who made good money. Even then, she insisted on being independent, kept her job and managed her finances, all while raising my aunt's husband and his siblings almost on her own. Instead of making her a humble person, understanding others' difficulties, she became a bitter woman who hated everyone who had it easier than her. It didn't help that her husband died at a young age. Dealing with her was also very difficult. You were either with her or against her. She controlled her children with an iron fist and tried to control every single aspect of their lives. Who they befriended, who they dated, where they travelled, what they studied. She was never outright abusive or rude to my aunt, but it was obvious that she didn't like her, or any of her daughters and sons-in-law for that matter. But she was very nice to her grandchildren. She liked giving them nice gifts and cooking all their favourite dishes. The first time I met her, I thought she was the sweetest old lady for how she treated my cousin. It was until she lashed at me for disagreeing with her on the tiniest thing that I realised how she was. September 19th, 2017. A strong earthquake shook Mexico City. Hundreds of people lost their lives, thousands lost their homes. among them my aunt and her family. They went to the only place they could go, to her mother-in-law's house. My cousin was the most affected. She witnessed how part of her high school collapsed, killing a couple of students, and she lost her home. At first, my cousin's grandmother was delighted to have them home. She thought my aunt would be her servant, when she could spend all her day talking to her son and spoiling my cousin. My aunt and her husband still had to work, and my cousin was in no condition to be spoilt. Her grandmother was furious. 2 days after the earthquake, my aunt realised my cousin was getting worse and called a psychological support line, established specifically to help those affected by the earthquake. My cousin's grandmother heard them and lashed against her. If she had dealt with much worse, including 2 devastating earthquakes more, and had survived, my cousin could too. It's just that she was too weak and pathetic. My aunt tried to defend her, only to be met with insults and the implication that her husband's worst mistake was marrying her. When my cousin's father arrived, they all argued for hours. He demanded an apology from his mother, who responded by throwing them out of her house. They had to go and live with a family friend for a couple of months. He promised he would never talk to his mother until she apologised to his wife and daughter. Instead, my cousin's grandmother tried to have her other children on her side. None of them agreed with her. They all knew what had happened, and everyone sided with my cousin's family. She was furious. She demanded all of her children to apologise for disagreeing with her. When none did, she cut them off. She wouldn't cave in. She wouldn't accept that she was in the wrong. She'd rather never talk to any of her children or grandchildren again than admit she was wrong. Cue to yesterday, my cousin received a call from her grandmother's brother. She died earlier from COVID-19 complications. None of her children knew she had caught it. None of her grandchildren knew she was in hospital. She had finally died alone. But at least she didn't have to admit she was wrong. And I'm going to read the top comment from this post because I think it really rings true. This is from Gestalt Dude. Of all the parts of human psyche, ego is perhaps the most dangerous and difficult to deal with. Too little and you feel you have no value, leading to people walking all over you. Too much and you become so convinced of your own superiority, you alienate people and are left with nothing but your own self-satisfaction, which can turn into self-loathing when you see what your pride has done to your life. Hope your cousin and her family are able to find some peace. The regret of not having made amends may rear its head, though by the sounds of things, they were quite glad to have her out of their lives. Wow. Our next story is from Worrell. Entitled Mum Needs Her Eggs and Toilet Paper. I, like many people nowadays, am stuck at home most days. I only really get to go out grocery shopping, or maybe the pharmacy to get diapers. Yay. The other day I had to pick up some diapers, so off to the pharmacy I went. They were limited in the number of people in the store, so I had to get in line right behind Karen. There were about 3 people in front of us, and we were all keeping our social distance from each other. But I could still hear her complaining the whole time. Ugh, why do you have to stand out here? They're going to be out of everything by the time I get there, etc. When the lady out front tells her she can go in, she goes, ugh, finally, and storms past her. I'm a regular at the store, so I guess the lady recognised me, so we exchanged a can you believe her look. It was finally my turn, so I thanked the lady and went in. I made a beeline for the diapers section and got the diapers. As I was heading to the registers, I noticed they had some eggs on sale. The pharmacy also has some groceries. I wasn't sure if we needed eggs, so I called my wife to see if we needed some. They had 2 cartons left and there was a big sign saying, limit 1 per customer. Both packs had looked like they'd been through the ringer and were falling apart. My wife said we could use them, especially if they were on sale. I was about to grab one when Karen showed up out of nowhere and pushed past me, like right next to me. I took a quick step back, both out of shock and distancing, and she grabbed both cartons. I pointed out the 1 carton limit. She said, well, my kids need their eggs, and she put both in her cart. I wasn't in a desperate need for them anyways, so I didn't push it any further. I basically followed Karen to the registers, so I guess she was heading there too. They only had 2 registers opened, so I lined up behind her. They had marks on the floor for social distancing. I looked to my left and saw another cooler full of eggs, in much better condition than the 2 Karen had taken, so I just grabbed one of those and put it in my cart. When Karen got up to the front, she put both egg cartons on the counter. The cashier told her, sorry, but these have a 1 carton per customer limit. Karen smiled at her. I know, but I was hoping maybe you could make an exception for me, because my kids eat eggs every day for lunch, and they need their eggs. The cashier looks at the 2 fallen apart cartons, and already knows she won't find anyone else to buy them. She told me afterwards. So she says, okay, we will make an exception for you. Karen is elated. Oh, thank you so much. As the cashier scans and puts the eggs in the bag, Karen puts 3 packages of toilet paper on the counter. I glanced at that section as I went past and it was empty. Again, I didn't need any TP, so it wasn't a big deal. The cashier looks at them and sighs. Unfortunately, the toilet paper is a 1 package per customer as well. Karen looks at her again. Could you make another exception for me, please? We're completely out of toilet paper at home, and this is all you have in the store. We need it. The cashier sighs again. I'm sorry, but if this is all we have, some other customer might need it. Karen looks at her and says, but my kids need it. I'm sorry, said the cashier. She reached for the toilet paper as Karen pulled it back in a hug. And then she said those 6 little words that every Reddit writer dreams about. Let me speak to your manager. I was in arm's length of some popcorn, so I debated grabbing some for the show. The cashier grabbed the phone and asked if the manager could come out. He came out after a minute or so. Hi, what seems to be the problem? He asked Karen. Your employee made an exception for me with my eggs, but now she refuses to make one for my toilet paper. He looks at her like she has 3 eyes, but the cashier explains it all to him. Okay, I see the problem, he says. He steps up to the register as cashier steps back. He scans 1 pack of toilet paper, placing all 3 packs in the baggage area. Karen didn't catch this because she is looking at the cashier all smug. He then types something on the register and takes one of the egg cartons out of the bag, handing it to the cashier along with the other 2 packs of the toilet paper. Could you please put these back on the shelf for me? Thanks. Cashier smiles and says sure. Karen starts to say something as the cashier leaves, but manager cuts her off. Sorry, 1 limit per customer. She starts saying something again as he puts her TP in the bags with the eggs. But he just turns to her and says, cash or credit? She tries again, but he cuts her off again. Sorry, did you say cash or credit? She throws him a death stare. They have a plastic barrier up, and I think she was trying to melt it with her eyes or something, the way she was staring at him. Credit, she finally says, pulling out her card. She pays and grabs her bag. Have a nice day, he says with a smile as she leaves. The manager started to scan my items, and the cashier was back by the time I was getting ready to pay. She apologised for Karen. I laughed and told her not to worry about it. This was the first live show I've seen in nearly a month. Please be nice to everyone out there working right now. The whole world has gone to shit, and they're out there covered in it for us. Why, Karen? Why'd you do this to us? Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, you know what to do. Please consider hitting that like, leaving a comment below. Part of the reason I do this is for your comments. I love reading your comments, and when I don't see them, it just makes me a bit sad. So if you do have time out of your day, a comment below will be hugely appreciated. And as said before, please consider liking, subscribing if you did enjoy the video, and I will see you in the next one. Much love, guys.